For more, joining us live is Dr. Andrew Miller, the AMA's WA President. Dr. Miller, I appreciate your time. We do need to be careful here because authorities are saying it's too early to make a definitive link. But from a medical perspective, what are the risks of clots with the Pfizer jab? As we know, most of the attention has been on the AstraZeneca. Just how minute are the chances of clotting with the Pfizer?
Well, the data tells us that this is unlikely to be related to vaccination, given that the Pfizer vaccine is not the same type of technology as the vaccines that have been causing that unusual type of clotting. This is much more likely to be a standard sort of DVT that we see associated with travel and surgery and so on.
Yeah, we'll wait to hear further from authorities. We are actually standing by to take our viewers live to a news conference with the Deputy Premier in Queensland. But Andrew, we have seen some positive news on this front today. Victoria announcing it's building a new plant that's capable of manufacturing the Pfizer vaccine here in Australia. I mean, how important, how much of a priority should that be to be able to produce the Pfizer vaccine here?
Well, the ability to produce a variety of vaccines in the country should have been a top priority and should have been stood up early last year. So this is overdue and very welcome news. The Germans managed to get a Pfizer facility producing in 6 months, and they already have a very established pharmaceutical industry, so it may take us a little longer than that. But the government should be pulling out all stops, to get a big variety of vaccines available, because not only are we going to need to complete this program, which has had a few stuttering starts at the moment, but also we need to update vaccines for variants of concern over time. And this kind of mRNA technology is the best one to rapidly switch the kind of vaccine we're producing and provide protection into 2022 and after that, so we can hopefully protect our community, including our children.
Yeah, when it comes to looking at what we're doing with children, I mean, are we making much progress when it comes to plans to vaccinate children? How confident are we that these vaccines are safe for children?
Well, there are trials going on with the different vaccines in paediatric populations, which are positive so far, but we need to be talking about it as a community, because we're having discussions around how the future is going to look post-vaccination, but we're not vaccinated till the kids are done. We know that they do better with the disease in terms of hospitalisation and death, but those things still do occur in children, and Australia won't tolerate that. They're not going to put up with their kids getting sick and some of them ending up in hospital. So it will be an important step to reopening, and we need to have the conversation now about how we're going to roll that vaccine program out so that it's much better planned and thought out than the experience we've had with the adult population. For example, are we going to be doing it at schools? What is the best way to get it to children to get a really high penetration of that population, particularly the disadvantaged groups?
Dr. Miller, does it actually feel to you like Australia really is now on a war footing when it comes to the rollout? Do you get the sense that there is a new feeling of urgency since National Cabinet was tasked with getting the rollout back on track, or is that all puff?
Well, I think that when you're at war, it's the only thing you talk about. But at the moment, there's a lot of other things distracting the national conversation, because our closed borders have left us with this feeling of safety, and people are rightly prioritising some other issues as well, very important social justice issues and so on. And I think that gives us a bit of a breather, but it puts more responsibility on the government to maintain the urgency around making sure that we have the vaccination program that we need. And where are our quarantine facilities? Where are our freshly ventilated spaces? And the most important issue that I'll always come back to, Ash, is where is the recognition of airborne spread of this virus that we need from our federal government experts committee, who are looking increasingly isolated and frankly increasingly dangerous with this insistence that it can't travel more than 1.5 metres. We've got to get quarantine, hospitals, aged care, public buildings, everywhere thinking about ventilation, fresh air, and for goodness sake, give us proper face masks, N95s only for dealing with COVID disease.
Yeah, it must be frustrating to be raising these issues. And I know you have, Dr. Miller, for more than the year or so that we've been talking about this and meeting brick walls. I can only understand the frustration on that front. I just want to ask you, when you talk about the way that we're going to emerge from the pandemic, there has been a bit of talk in recent days about vaccinated Australians being able to quarantine at home. Would you trust that approach?
Well, what I would trust depends on the technology that's used, because the two things you need to conquer are making sure that the small number who won't comply do comply with staying there, and that other people are not visiting, and that we have adequate airborne protection in the quarantine sense. So I don't think it's an insurmountable thing, but given the track record of the fairly haphazard approach to quarantine around still being a problem. We've got a report in Western Australia that said we had airborne spread here, so we've got to upgrade ventilation. And everyone in Sydney seems to be scratching their head about how it's spreading in the hotel there, because they can't see it on the CCTV when it travels in the air. So I don't have confidence that as a nation we are yet capable of dealing with the quarantine issue sufficiently to get it into homes. But that's not to say that it's not doable if we put in the investment and the will. And I think that we do have to really be conscious of these poor people who are stuck overseas, who want to come back and are in difficult situations. And we owe it to them, who are Aussies just like I am or you are, to make this safe and to get them back here without the additional fear that they get here and they're going to catch it from the room next door.
Dr. Andrew Miller, the AMA President in Western Australia, always appreciate you making the time. Thank you.
Great to talk to you. Thanks, Ash.